The Sockjig Sneaker Podcast is not part of the marketing plan. Welcome to episode 80 of the Sockjig Sneaker Podcast. I'm your host Sockjig. You can follow me on Twitter at Sockjig and on Instagram as well. I'm back with another episode after a little bit of a delay. Originally, I had a main segment kind of idea that I was working on, but I deferred it for a little bit later just so I could work on it a little bit more. And then I was going to shift into listener questions. So I had asked for listeners on Twitter to send me their questions that I can answer on a future podcast. And even that I have had to defer because there's just a lot going on. It's been a little bit of a tough time. One of my close friends passed away unexpectedly at a pretty young age. So it's been a little bit difficult. And in difficult times, I usually just revert to spending even more time with my family and close friends. And so that's why it's been a little bit of a delay. And I don't really talk personal life on here very much, but my advice to you, to everyone listening, spend that time with your friends and take those photos when you do. So I'll do a questions episode next time. And the good news on that is I can get that out much quicker than this type of episode, which usually takes me a while to do. And this episode I've been working on for like 3 weeks in intervals whenever I could, whenever I had a thought or a time. And that's why it might be a little disjointed. There might be some kind of old news, but I guess that's just what happens when you have a podcast that comes out once a month. But the good news is you can still submit questions. If you have a question you want me to answer on a future podcast, you can email me at sockjig@gmail.com. You can DM me on Twitter or Instagram. If you wanted your voice on here, I used to have like a voicemail feature on my platform of choice, but they just axed that feature for no reason. I don't know. You can record like a voice memo on your phone and email it to me at sockjig@gmail.com. I don't think a lot of people will be doing that just because this is way too much friction to do something like that, but always a choice if you want your voice heard on the podcast. So in this episode, I talk about recent releases. I talk about the Corteiz Honey Black. I talk about the AJ1 sneaker, the Tourmaline Rodeo Dunk SB. I also talk about the UnheardOf's latest Grandma's Couch release and ask if, can Grandma really have 4 couches? And this might be the last couch drop. So I do this segment idea I came up with called 7 Suggestions for Future Grandma Themed Collabs. And then I also talk about my main issue with the dirty white Air Force One meme sneakers and that Nike Hyperice overpriced boot that they have coming out. I talk about some other sneaker news as well too over the past month and a half. And then finally I give my thoughts on Dick's Sporting Goods buying Foot Locker. But first, on feet and pickups. On feet lately I wore the Strangelove Dunk SBs and I haven't worn those in a long time, and I only really wore them once or twice before, so they're still pretty clean, and they kind of have to be because it's like velvet. When they get trashed, they look very, very trash because it's all just pink velvet. But when you're walking around in them, it's like you have to walk around very carefully to take care of the velvet then. And also because it's an older SB, it's a little bit more comfortable than some of these newer pairs have been, at least for me personally, in a size 12. I also wore the Kaepernick Air Force One, and I've just been meaning to pull out some of these older forgotten sneakers that I haven't worn in a long time, and I just saw them. I saw his face and his afro on the back of the heel tab, and I just pulled them out because I was wearing black pants to go with it. So for pickups in the last month and a half or so, it hasn't been that much. I did get the Jordan 4 SB. That's funny because in the last episode I said there's proof that I don't get every single thing, and that was from that Eric Costin shock drop where he posted the link on his Instagram, and I just happened to be online and available at the time, and I clicked the link and was able to hit. And when I brought these back in from the border, as I said before, I declare everything at the border. I was asked, why couldn't you get these sneakers in Canada? And I told them they only really dropped in US. And he said, okay, you're just going to have to pay some duties and taxes. And I went inside and only had to pay some taxes, which was $35 Canadian. So it wasn't that bad. I also got the Action Bronson 990 V6, the untitled one, I think, which was exclusive to his site. And if you entered the raffle that he had for both pairs of sneakers, the 990 V6s that he dropped, it seems like you had a pretty good chance of getting an invoice. And the only difference on these ones, I'm assuming the shoe tubers have talked about this, is it's got this stiff leather all around the mudguard and the toe box and the heel cup. And usually on the 990 V6s that I have, it's always been suede. And so it's a little bit striking difference to have like this hard plastic leather. Like, I'm not a leather expert. It doesn't feel like super soft or anything. It's very stiff. Pause. So I haven't had a chance to walk around these and see how different they are, but hopefully it's the same comfort wise. I also picked up the New Balance gray loafers, the 1906 L for loafer. And these have been restocking, and I didn't see them in a black one. I probably should have waited for a black pair, but I got these gray pair. And I wore these as well too, and they feel slightly more snug than the regular 1906 are. So at least the Sockjig socks that I have are thin socks, so they work well with them. Some recent releases over the past month and a half or so, there was the Air Max 95 Reverse Neon that was based on an early sketch of the Air Max 95, and that released only at the Museum of Modern Art, where there was only like 1,500 pairs, and as I said before, when they want you to know how many pairs they are, they will tell you. Otherwise, it's a mystery that can't be revealed. And I think this sneaker looks great, and it was probably a good job to hype it up by only limiting it to 1,500 pairs. And, you know, Nike wants it to be the year of the Air Max 95. They already did the limited version of the Neon, and they added the big bubble, and it seemed like they got the big bubble right this time, where they didn't really get it right on the Air Max 1. And people didn't really care for it on the Air Max 1, but on this one, it's, you know, not as noticeably different. And sneaker brands, they can say that this is going to be the year of this particular silhouette. It's going to be the year of the Air Max 95. But it's up to the people to actually care about it and accept it. They've tried it before with Air Max TN or Air Max Plus or the Field General or something, and it doesn't get accepted. But if you play the formula right and you know, planning meets the actual execution and the reception from people, then you actually can make it a year of the Air Max 95. It also helps the Air Max 95 is a legendary sneaker that people have a lot of memories associated with it. And it seems like they're going to have a lot more of them out this year. Kith is going to have a bunch at the end of the year, apparently. Kith and Nike haven't really worked together since like the Hawaii Air Force One, I think, was the last one. So since then, it's been New Balances as the store exclusive for the Toronto and Osaka. Also releasing this last few months have been these Rejuvenate Nike slides. First off, the name is like horrible with a number 8 on there. It's like, are they inspired by Prince or something? Rejuvenate for you, and it's just the letter 4 and U. Is that what the ad's probably going to be for these? Anyways, they're obviously a ripoff of Crocs, and it is kind of mind-blowing that it took this long for Nike to officially rip off Crocs. And Crocs even posted on Instagram poking fun about this, that, you know, they're being ripped off by Nike, and that's just where Nike is right now. They need to rip off others. They're not really the trendsetters. They're more following other trends at this point. And I know they're righting the ship. I know it takes a while, but they got a lot of work to do. But in the meantime, if the Zoomers want Crocs with a swoosh on it, Nike will oblige and give you a Croc with a swoosh on it. The Bred 11 Low came back, and I really love this sneaker. I just can't wear it anymore. My pinky toe thanks me. But I have a lot of fond memories with this sneaker from the last time I got it. It was the first time I was able to get a store to hold a size for me, and that's how in demand they were at the time. You had to enter raffles, and I had built enough of a rapport there where they were like, yeah, okay, we'll hold you a size 12. So it felt like a major accomplishment for me. So I have a lot of good memories with it, but I just can't wear it anymore. So even if the Bred 11 Low is not as hyped as it was the last time it came out 10 years ago, it's still got a lot of fans. It's still probably going to sell out eventually. It just didn't sell out in like the instant raffle way this time. And honestly, these look awesome with the OG gray tech fleece tracksuit. So if you see an OG wearing the gray tech fleece tracksuit and Bred 11 Lows, that's a diamond fit in my opinion. Also, there were a couple of Travis Scott releases recently. There was the Bright Cactus Jumpman Jack, and then the Spiridon one, Leche Blue. And they both have had different name changes like TJ Rex or whatever it is, but they were honestly an easy pass. The material of being canvas on the Bright Cactus is enough for me to pass on that one. And the blue one, which was like brown and light blue, I don't know, just not a combo that is pleasing to the eye in my opinion. And I remember before the Bright Cactus one came out, there was like a tweet, I think from Eldon Monitors on Twitter saying, oh great, another Travis drop that'll be impossible to get. And I just remember thinking, it'll probably be easy enough to get. I mean, who is going to be really clamoring for these? It's just like people have PTSD when it comes to Travis Scott releases, and they're not exactly looking at the sneaker itself. It's like, if it's a Jordan 1 low, it's going to fly. If this is a Spiridon, TJ Rex, PJ Masks, Basement Jacks sneaker that's like yellow and light blue and brown, it'll probably sit or at least sell out in the key sizes, and size 7.5 and 8.5 might sit. But if you really wanted them, they were easy enough to get. And that's basically what happened. And I think it's admirable for Travis to push out new silhouettes. I think that's very important to do and not just rely on a Jordan 1 low. But if you put out too many bad colorways and you don't have the right hype and energy coming back, you'll eventually have a bigger problem on your hands. And that decline is already there. It seems like we're already on the downswing for Travis. And then long term, who is there to replace Travis Scott as like the big hype musician at Jordan Brand? No one clearly evident at the moment. Similar scenario for these UNC ones, the reimagined UNC ones that are coming out. And I don't have like the OG version of these that came out 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I have the off-white version, which I never wore, which are still dead stock. But because I have those dead stock, it just gave me a reason not to go for these. And judging, at least from looking at the photos on sneakers, they look very yellow, and I didn't even notice the cracked leather until someone pointed it out. But as I'm recording this right now, these sat on sneakers, but they did sell out on retailers, meaning, there's still people that want them, that'll pay full price, that aren't going to wait for it to go under retail. Maybe you can use a discount if it goes on the Nike site, Nike Desktop. You can use Rakuten or whatever. But the Jordan 1 High is just out of fashion at the moment, and it'll cycle back eventually. It's a stone cold classic sneaker, so it'll eventually come back. So, I don't really think this requires like a think piece or anything. Why are these sneakers sitting? Why didn't it sell out? Oh no, what's happening? The people who want it, they'll be able to get it. The people who want to wait for a discount, if your size like 9.5 or 9, maybe you'll be able to get them on a discount as well too. And if Nike is sweating the fact that they didn't sell as many, that they had to go on sale, that demand is lower than before, they'll, I'm sure, just make a $250 version one and say there's 10,000 pairs and pull out the white gloves again. Next up was the Corteiz Honey Black release, and early on before the release, they had like this New York City event where I talked about it on Twitter where, any brand that wants to generate some buzz, you need New York City. You need to go to New York City to generate that buzz, to create a scene. You could do the same event in Miami or LA. It just won't hit the same like it would in New York City, where you would get the people out there and the people excited. And there was a similar scenario with Lil Yachty and his yellow and green Air Force Ones that he's got coming out, where he was doing a scavenger hunt in New York City. And before that, he had gone out to New York City and given the sneakers to people on the street and did like a whole photo shoot of people in New York City wearing those sneakers. And it looked cool and all, but like Lil Yachty is from Atlanta. He's got nothing to do with New York. But that if you want to do something like this, you got to go to New York City and do it. So he could have did it in Atlanta. I don't know why. But the playbook says if you need to generate some energy, you need to create some hype, you go to New York. But back to Corteiz, the Clint guy, he's like Nigerian-born British dude with a Spanish brand name and the logo based on a San Francisco's Alcatraz Island. So when you mix that all together, of course you go to New York City. And I had made a similar joke tweet about Hidden New York being a British dude who's got a brand named after New York, who makes made in LA clothing that's inspired by Japan. At least in Clint's case, at least with Corteiz, the slogan is rules the world. So it at least sort of makes sense to just do your event in whatever city generates the most buzz for you. And Corteiz has buzz, and as I've been talking about in recent episodes, when you're a new and up-and-coming brand, it's not enough to just have it. You got to maintain it. You got to grow it. And New York City is where you got to go to do that. And for the release itself, for the online release, people with past order history were able to get emails that gave them early access. And those people that got those emails were like whitelisted on the site. They got the password a couple hours before the release, and the password were out, but people couldn't check out. And And Action Bronson and others have done this similar release method, and it's pretty good if you have order history. I don't have any order history with Corteiz, and so I didn't get this email. But there was a regular drop for everyone else, and I tried on that. And, I was at least happy that it was a regular online drop and not like a last minute raffle or anything. It's not that I don't mind raffles. Raffles are totally fine and they work. I just don't want raffles to replace first come, first serve entirely. I think there should be a balance. And so even if it leans more raffles than anything else lately, at least have some first come, first serve. Even if it's a disaster of a drop is not necessarily bad for a brand, a new up and coming brand. It's just a disaster for the people who wanted the sneaker at the time. So I tried, I got a 40-minute queue. And I knew it was over for me. I was trying for a size 13 and I left the tab open and just went back to work. Whatever, it's over. Eventually it said sold out, but others were able to wait out the 40 minutes and still check out. So obviously this means that there's a lot of pairs out there. The resale price on them kind of tells you that there's a lot of pairs out there. And if you're a collaborator and you're on your like third or fourth release, that's where you crank up the numbers and you make some money. And that's what it seems like he did. And some people have still not got shipping, even though the disclaimers and stuff will save 10 to 15 business days. But it's funny to go on his Twitter and he'll have like random tweets about anything. And he'll like, how much do you want it today? He had a tweet like that. And everybody in the replies was like, you know what I want? I want my fucking shipping. That's what I want. And another tweet, it's easy to get there. What's difficulty is staying there. You know what's easy? If I got my shipping, if you could just send me my fucking sneakers, that'd be great. So these are all, I guess, good problems to have if you're this dude and you're going to make a lot of money shipping these sneakers. But it seems like it's easy enough for founders to at least separate themselves eventually, that this is just a sign that you made it, that you always dreamed of having people just asking you for shipping instead of you sitting there twiddling your thumbs waiting for an order. The AJ1 sneaker released as well too, and it's a big hit. It's selling out really fast. I saw Soul Retriever and others post that it sold out in 5 minutes, and I've never really seen people time it of when it sells out, but people are really invested in her. People are really invested in her sneaker being a success. It's because people love Asia Wilson. They've always loved her. And what's interesting about this is Nike could have capitalized on this way earlier and they just did not recognize it, or they knew about it and just delayed it. They put Sabrina Ionescu first. They gave her a shoe first. And I don't know the reasons for that. It's either boring or it's very interesting. Either way, we'll never know. But it worked out for Nike because that Sabrina Ionescu sneaker is a big hit. So they're happy. And Ben Nathancombe is the Nike senior designer who's designed this sneaker, this AJ1 sneaker. He's basically designed every recent Nike basketball sneaker, including the Book One and others. And he certainly made a name for himself by just basically having a monopoly on who can design a Nike basketball sneaker. And on an older episode, I talked about how Nike was not naming designers for signature sneakers at the time. They had stripped that from all those press releases. But now they have Ben out there. He's on the shows sometimes. He's in the press releases because he's like their star designer. But the problem with having one star designer is it's the same kind of design language on every single sneaker. And many people have pointed this out, that they all look exactly the same. They all look like versions of a Kobe sneaker. And if there are other designers there who want to design a signature sneaker, well, too bad. Ben Nathancombe's going to design it. So get to the back of the line. And these AJ1 sneakers, they don't exactly look like a Kobe sneaker like the Sabrina Ionescu sneaker did to me, but they're also not radically different. It's the same design language, you can tell. And I don't know, much about the technical side of developing sneakers, but to me, it must seem like if you use the same design language on multiple sneakers, it must be cheaper to make all those sneakers then, if they all look very similar. If you design a very similar TPU cage on the heel or the mudguard or on this other part, and then when you make a Sabrina one or an Asia Wilson one that is very similar and you could just shave it down, you are cutting corners, you are saving costs. Whereas if you had another signature that was a total high top that looked like a Shacknosis thing or something like that, that is a totally different design language, a totally different parts, and the cost would be different. I could be way off, but to me that makes sense. Also released were these Rodeo Dunk SBs, the Tourmaline sneaker. I don't think I've said Tourmaline out loud ever before. And these were a tribute to Bill Pickett, a black cowboy pioneer. And even though it's not an official collab with his estate or anything, it's an obvious homage or a reference to him and his history with being a cowboy and rodeos and bulldogging. And there was a lot of mystery with this sneaker with Nike, and it hasn't really been explained. Like, was it always going to be a Black History Month sneaker? And really, if you reference Black history, then it is a Black History sneaker. But does that automatically mean that it's supposed to drop when it's a Black History Month? That part I'm not sure about. I'm not sure if it was always planned to drop in that time and then it just got delayed. And similar to what I said about the AJ1 sneaker, the answers to these questions are either very interesting or they're very boring. The boring answer being it's just production delays. It's supposed to drop in February. A shipping container got stuck in a port, so it got moved to May. An interesting answer could have been, what if the estate of Bill Pickett raised concerns? Or what if Nike doesn't want to directly label things as Black History Month anymore? Or be true anymore? In this current political climate and you're Nike and you're trying to get the president of the US to bypass tariffs and sneakers and be on his good side, maybe then you are playing a political game of this and making it so you're not doing Black History Month sneakers, you're not doing Be True sneakers because you're trying to curry favor from this administration. However, Nike SB has always been its own operation. They've always had kind of a punk rock spirit to them. So maybe they were like, we're going to do a Black History Month sneaker anyway, even if it can't be labeled Black History Month. And someone at Nike at a higher level could, stamp this out, or they could agree with this. This is a way to play kind of both sides. You can curry favor in this current political climate, but also pay tribute to Black history pioneers. Like I said, the answers to these questions are either very interesting or very boring. But overall, I think it's a great sneaker, probably one of the best sneakers of the year in terms of storytelling, details, references, materials, the suede, to the color on it, the lining, all that stuff. It looks really good. And yes, the green is very bright and, many consider that really hard to wear. I'm not overly concerned with everything being matching in terms of fits, but obviously I'm not like a fit god or anything either. And some people are very concerned about that. So I did not get this sneaker. I tried on Premiere and Sneakers app only and did not win. And so I don't really buy anything for resale anymore. I just got way too many sneakers to be reaching back and paying for resale anymore. So if I miss it, I just move on. But honestly, one of the best sneakers of the year, I think, so far. UnheardOf also had another release of their Grandma's Couch sneaker, and before that happened, there was some chatter about UnheardOf related to Matthew Welty of Complex, and I guess they had asked him previously, that Piggy Runner, the pink one, is that a drip, skip, or flip? And I think they were asking them again, like, what do you think of this sneaker? Is it a sneaker of the year type of conversation? And I guess it was just the account, trying to engage him and kind of ask him his opinion on it. And Matthew's response was, quote, "I think I would like this sneaker more if I wasn't constantly asked what my opinion of the shoe is. Pretty annoying at this point, not gonna lie," end quote. And that was like the discussion of the day on Twitter about how, people were responding, isn't that your job to talk about sneakers? And I understood kind of what Welty was saying, especially if you've listened to the podcast where he talked about it. Obviously he could have worded it different and not been so direct. And I'm only mentioning here because it lends to what I was talking about in the previous episode, that if you cultivate a following and if you take care of that following, that audience will go to bat for you. If someone doesn't word things correctly or it says they're not a fan, they'll go to war for you. And obviously this is like good and bad. If you are a business and you have a loyal following and you have loyal customers, that is good. It's bad if that loyal customer following is then going out and like oinking on the timeline and stamping out haters for you. That doesn't need to be done. No one has to like every single sneaker that's put across their feed. So I only mentioning that part because I talked about it previously and then it all happened on the timeline that day. And like most of my takes on this podcast, I think they will age nicely. But Unheard Of also had another release for a new pair of Grandma's Couch that was limited to 600 pairs. That was in-store only, and they had another event in Cincinnati where they flew out sneaker influencers and women, and it looked like everyone had fun at that event. And later they announced that there was going to be another green pair that's limited to 100 pairs, and I had a joke about it on Twitter, but before that I wanted to say, good for Unheard Of for taking back this theme of Grandma's Couch. And apparently Phil of Unheard Of had pitched this concept to Nike first, and Nike passed, and then he took it to Adidas, and Adidas had this campaign, and it's been a big success for them. And then later LeBron had a Grandma's Couch, Mom's Couch kind of concept, and also Nigel had a Grandma's Driveway. And I don't know if those are related. I don't know if it was copied or ripped off. I mean, people have grandmas, people have couches. It makes sense. You want to honor them. As I've been saying in this episode, the answers to this are either very boring or they're very interesting, and we'll never really know why. But good on Phil for taking it back and kind of making it his. So I had a joke about this that I'm sorry, it's just not believable to me that Grandma had 4 couches. 2 couches, yes. A third couch, maybe it's a love seat or something, or it's in the basement. I got it. Grandma's gonna have 3 couches. But 4 couches? I don't know any grandma that has 4 couches. You gotta live in a huge house to have 4 couches. That's just pure fantasy. So this was obviously a joke, and if you know my voice, you know that it's a joke. But if you are in the Oink army and don't follow me, it might sound like I'm like making fun of the sneaker or attacking your favorite brand. That really wasn't the case at all. And I was not trying to be mean-spirited or anything. I even said, you know how hard it is to make a joke about a grandma sneaker that's not mean? And people were asking me if there's bad blood or animosity there. And I was like, no, not at all. I'm just having fun on Twitter, the everything app. And I can make jokes because I'm totally separate from all that's going on. I'm not part of the marketing plan. I didn't get seeded. I didn't get an invoice. I'm not invited to Cincinnati or anything. I don't have to like the sneaker. The sneaker's not bad. It's a fine sneaker. And that means I can say what I want. If I think it's fine, it's fine. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't upset me. It's not something I want to seek out and buy either. And that's kind of probably what Welty was saying, that he's being forced to talk about it and validate it because he's on a sneaker show. And that's fine for him if he can not like the being forced to validate a sneaker. My response is different. My response is to write jokes about it. My response is also to kind of take the piss out of things, especially if you have these super fans out on these Twitter streets oinking it up. I can even poke fun at that. I can make this a whole satire thing. Like I said, I'm not involved in the marketing plan, so I can do this. I don't have to be oinking on the timeline. But that's just my approach to things. I'm trying to have fun. I'm not trying to be overly mean. People take things way too seriously in the sneaker world, and I guess I do too at times, and I'm trying to learn from that and grow from that. But no one could ever point to me and say, hey, that guy is always way too serious. He never has any fun. If you look at my timeline, if you even listen to this podcast, you understand that it's rooted in jokes, really. But for these brands, they choose what their voice and tone is going to be. If it's going to be playful and fun, like how Unheard Of is doing on Twitter, and make jokes and stuff like that, that's fine. You can choose to do that. It can become difficult when you botch something or there's an issue or, stuff gets stolen. Then you all of a sudden have to turn serious. If the cartoon pig has to take off his headband and workout clothes and then stand at a lectern and give a serious announcement, you know what I mean? It's hard to change that when you are literally a pig. But honestly, they're doing fine. They're able to handle it. They're selling out their product. They're elevating their brand. There's no one making jokes about Naked Copenhagen or Packer Shoes or Manor Phoenix or whoever. And if you've been able to elevate yourself among that pack, that is ultimately a good thing. Look at Ronnie. People love making Ronnie jokes. I've made Ronnie jokes about him sitting on the stoop and stuff. But there's no denying Ronnie and what he's done. And there's no denying what Unheard Of has been able to do in a pretty short time. So congrats to them. But that had me thinking, what else can you follow this up with? Are you going to follow it up with more grandma themes? Grandma is a big topic in sneakers for some reason right now. There's a LeBron pair. Nigel did the grandma's driveway and grandma's furnace and stuff like that. Deion Sanders had a red pair recently dedicated to his mom. So what else can you do to dedicate a sneaker to mom or grandma? So I came up with a few ideas. And if someone's going to do a special edition of a mom pair, they should call it like Grandma's Chesterfield. This is not a couch. This is a Chesterfield. This is an elevated grandma's couch. So with that said, here's some suggestion for future grandma sneaker collaborations. Number 1, how about the grandma insists on driving shell toes? Grandma, please, you shouldn't be driving anymore. Please just give us the keys. You can't even see over the steering wheel anymore. You almost hit that neighbor's kid. And grandma's going to be like, screw you, sonny boy. I insist on driving. And when I'm driving, I'm going to be wearing these grandma insists on driving shell toes. Number 2, grandma's crippling bingo addiction superstars. Grandma cannot leave the bingo hall. She wants to go to Vegas. I don't even think she can handle a flight right now. Grandma, please no. You're gambling away our inheritance here, Grandma. And you know how phrases have become a thing, and having a phrase, identify your collaboration. So how about, Grandma, you just asked me that question 5 minutes ago. Okay, that one's a little too mean. We don't want to dedicate a sneaker to grandma's dementia. How about, Grandma's sharing AI slop on Facebook again? That's a little bit lighthearted more. It's fine for grandmas to share AI slop on Facebook. Or how about, Grandma, please, no, that was a telemarketing scam. That wasn't really a Nigerian prince. What? You gave her all your banking info? Oh, Grandma. We got to call the beekeeper now to solve this problem. There you go. You can do like a triple collab with Jason Statham and Amazon Prime. Finally, how about the, Grandma, you can't say that word anymore, Grandma. We can't be saying that word anymore. Don't use it at the grocery store. Yes, Grandma, I'm aware who the president of the United States is. And okay, you have a point there. This is like the mainstream of American culture right now. But please, what? Not my Captain America? Come on, Grandma. That Captain America was totally fine. Oh, Grandma, he was a really good Captain America. Please don't be saying this at the grocery store either. You don't even watch Marvel movies, Grandma. I don't know how, but you got to put all that on a Adidas Gazelle or something. Nike and Dot Swoosh are releasing meme sneakers now. They just went from crypto to video games to memes now. Maybe they figured we just got to copy Mischief now, get in on this meme game. Either way, I guess it's all sort of a tribute to online culture in a way. So the dirty white Air Force Ones reference the dirty Air Force One meme, of course, but in reverse, where there's a layer that looks like the shoe is dirty, but it's not really dirty. It's just like a film layer on top of the sneaker, I guess. And as it scrubs away, it's supposed to show a cleaner white leather underneath. And that's clever and all. It's a good reference to a meme and all. But if you actually stop to think about it, the more you would wear it, the more creased it would get, the more dirty it would get. And as stuff would wear away, even that would get dirty. So it's just going to go from dirty to dirty and even more creased. Unless you scrub it away yourself. But honestly, thinking about it doesn't really matter. It's a good reference. And that's the kind of things that matters these days. And so it's clever, as I said. And what's also funny is they did a black pair, but that doesn't reference the meme about criminals wearing black Air Forces. They couldn't even do a tongue-in-cheek reference to that at all because, no Fortune 500 company wants to be referenced with criminals. So instead, they honor bus drivers and cooks and service industry people who wear black Air Force Ones. And I haven't worked in a kitchen or anything, but I don't think I would wear black Air Force Ones to stand for 8 hours a day. They're just too heavy. But here, even this placement of now you're doing a sincere story of honoring service workers. But as I was asking, what is Dot Swoosh now? It went from crypto to video game to meme, and now all of a sudden it's paying tribute to the hardworking men and women of the service industry? It doesn't really make any sense. If you're into memes and bullshit and online culture, then you have to shift into sincere mode or serious mode. As I was talking about UnheardOf, it's just a jarring shift in voice and tone when you do it. So these black Air Force Ones, as part of this meme collection that they did, it doesn't really make any sense if you stop to think about it, but it's fine. No one is really going to stop to think about it because the reference is more important. The tribute to the service industry people is more important than actually thinking through and does this actually fit? But that's fine. That's a minor quibble. Even the dirty white Air Force One meme is, like I said, it's clever. I don't personally want it, but I get it. People like the reference and they will want to wear it away. It's something to do with that sneaker. My main issue with these dirty white Air Force Ones is that it's just way too late. The timing is just way off and it's already dated. It would have been a perfect reference 2 to 3 years ago. The West Village girlies in New York City, they're not wearing dirty Air Force Ones anymore. There was a New York Magazine cover where they had some white girls from West Village, and I'm not getting into the story about what they were doing, but in the photos, they were all wearing Sambas and Puma Speed Cats or some sort of like low flat sneaker. They're not wearing dirty Air Force Ones. And you might be thinking, no, that's not true. I see lots of people still wearing dirty Air Force Ones. And yes, that's true. There will always be sneakerhead types that will wear them for sure. Even like random girls will still wear them. But what I'm talking about is the trendy girls, the ones that have been out in front of it. And it's been like 2 years of them not wearing dirty Air Force Ones. So that's why I said the sneaker is just so dated. If you look at the trend cycle as a bell curve on a graph, and then the peak is the peak, everything after the peak is like late majority and laggards. And that's where I think it's past late majority now. And it's like laggards wearing dirty Air Force Ones. So I get it. It's a reference. You're making a nudge, nudge, wink, wink reference to white girls wearing dirty Air Force Ones or just anyone wearing dirty Air Force Ones. But they've all been wearing Asics and Sambas for 2 years straight now. So if you're going to fight back, why don't you fight back on that front, I think. The Undefeated 4s apparently have been pushed back till August. And I know there's a lot of people really excited about these sneakers, but judging by these early photos, something just seems off. And I think it's just the sneakers themselves. These early photos, they always have bad lighting and bad cameras and bad poses even, those dainty poses. If I see an early photo of a sneaker and there's a dainty pose and there's bad lighting, I'm just going to assume it's fake. That's me. Everyone else is free to believe what they want to. But one of the releasers of these early photos have been FKZ Sneakers, who in the past has posted fakes. And overall, my point of view with fakes is if you are a fake collector and you associate with fakes, or in this case, if you are a fake poster of sneakers, you have peed in the pool. Everything you post or everything you have in your collection is tainted. Yes, some of them could be real, but because some of them are fake, then potentially everything could be fake. Literally everything has got piss on it then. But with this FKZ Sneakers person, group, collective, whoever they are, sometimes in the past, Z sneakerheads and others have reposted their photos. So I don't know if that means that they are cool with them, they vetted them, they verified them, and those sneakers are real, those ones that they're posting. It sort of semi-validates them if someone with the credibility of Z sneakerheads is posting them. I can't speak on that. I don't know what happens behind the scenes on that kind of stuff. But for me, if you have posted fakes in the past, then you are a big pisser in the pool. And I'm just not going to trust photos from a big pisser in the pool. Another release that's coming out soon is this Nike Hyperboot. And I know Complex got them early and we're posting videos and talking about them as well too. And these are intended for pro athletes who need to recover or warm up, but they also need to, I guess, walk around. To me, it doesn't really make that much sense. You need to rest and recover, but you also gotta walk around to negate the rest and recovery. But obviously, it's not made for me. I'm a work from home dad. I'm not a pro athlete, and that's who's going to be using these. That's who's probably going to be buying these. The teams that have pro athletes on staff who buy the equipment for them. It's not really a general audience shoe. It just seems like it's a shoe. Like, let's see if we can actually make this shoe. And when you price it at $8.99, it's made for that audience. But, I was saying on Twitter, like, just compare this to the price of a bucket, warm water, and some Epsom salt. And how much is the price difference here? You got, what, $2 worth of, how much of a bucket and some Epsom salt cost? $2, $3? Say it's $10. Quite the big difference from $10 to $8.99. But a bucket on your feet does not have any aura, but a Hyperboot, I guess, could. So, and what's interesting here is they partnered with Hyperice instead of doing this themselves. The technology that they're using is all from Hyperice, which makes like this kind of technology stuff for athletes. And they have like these big like cast types of bags that you put around legs of athletes to help them recover. And I guess the vision was, can we make a version of this that's in a sneaker? And so Nike is tapped in to design the sneaker, make that technology fit in the sneaker. And they didn't, I guess, do any of the technology stuff themselves. They just make a sneaker that you can walk around with and looks cool. So that's a good call by them, because Nike has never created any good tech products ever, really. Every tech product that they make, they eventually abandon. Obviously they've made footwear tech like Air and Zoom Air, but any like actual technology, gadget or anything like that, it's always been abandoned. Sport watch, the Nike Sport Watch, the Nike Fuel Band. I don't know if you remember the Fuel Band. The Hyper Adapt, of course, that is actually, ventures into the sneaker where that was their own doing. And of course, like Artifact, that's all been canned and shifted over to Dot Swoosh, I guess. So they almost always abandon any tech that they try to do. And this is because they're not a tech company. They're a footwear company, or, the saying of a marketing company that makes products for athletes, makes footwear for athletes. So if they didn't create the tech part of this product, that's probably easier for them. And it's also easier for them to abandon the project if it doesn't work out. But as I was saying, compare this to a bucket with some Epsom salt in it. This ultimately is just as useless as the Hyper Adapt was. The Hyper Adapt cost all this money and was very cool and all, but ultimately not as good as a pair of laces that probably cost 2 cents to manufacture. So you got, $500 robotic lacing sneakers, or string laces that cost 2 cents that work way better. So even though they abandoned the Hyper Adapt, they got right back into a similar situation with this Hyperice Hyperboot, although this time it's with a partner. But it's the same problem. It's like the hydrogen bomb versus the coughing baby meme. Who would win, a hydrogen bomb or a coughing baby? And obviously that's a meme. It's a joke about extreme contrast. And what other extreme contrast is there in footwear where something costs $5 and the alternative costs $8.99 just because it's a little bit cooler? So as a product manager of a product team, if you are ever in the territory where you are making a product that can be compared to the hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby meme, you're probably not on the right track. Some sneaker news over the past month that I wanted to talk about. A while back, there was all these Chinese TikTokers talking about how fakes are available. They're all made in the same factory. You can get them now. All of a sudden, all these like polished TikTokers were just basically blasted out all at once everywhere. And it just seemed to me like, the agenda was given to all these TikTokers to get this out there to battle Trump's tariff war. And as usual, you saw people who fall for it, who are, like, they're all just made in the same factory, bro. Why are you wasting your time and money on this? The Hermes bag is really made by this Chinese TikToker guy, as he's showing. But at the same time, I saw a lot of people just pushing back on this, that this is not real, that this is all bullshit. And that's all I want to say, is that you always got to be aware of the con. The con I've talked about lots of times. You always have to be mindful if someone is trying to con you. And a Chinese TikToker you've never seen before, all of a sudden there's just wave after wave and the algorithm is pushing it. Color me suspicious. I'm not going to believe everything I see on a Chinese TikToker agenda. But it's been like this perfect storm, really, of all these things going on. The global recession, Trump's tariff war, the bad economy, and then people just have less to spend, but they still want the status of having a luxury item. That's essentially the draw of all these fakes. And at the same time, the culture is moving to this slop era and these TikTok shops, and that's what you get. You get all these TikToker accounts pushing this fake agenda. But if you just use common sense to think about it for a sec, if some factory was generating fakes for Louis Vuitton or Hermes or whoever, would someone from that factory really be advertising it and pushing it out on an algorithm? No, they would keep quiet and keep making money. But if you are an obvious fake rep producer, then you want to push out this agenda. So that's all I'm saying. Don't be conned. Use common sense. There's people who want to believe, and those are the ones that believe. Bred 1s are restocking later this year, and it came out that they're restocking, and then no, it's not a restock, it's actually a remix, whatever that means. The reds are going to be different or whatever. But then it came out back that it really is a restock with special box, and it's still gonna be like 250 plus, but there's probably gonna put some more handkerchiefs and stuff in there. And I joked that, people just wore these white gloves for nothing. You did this whole song and dance in a big pony show about these Bred ones, and it's a white glove service, and then it's like, oh yeah, it's coming out later again too. Even more special now with new hat. And really, this just lends to my theory that Nike was choked that they have to lower stock numbers on this item in order for it to have the prestige and this white glove service. And they made up for it by jacking up the retail. And so this just shows that they're still looking for more of the money that they could have made if they made a shit ton. Next story, there was an update in Sneakers app a while back on how they're doing the Sneakers Link feature where special collaborators could get a special link that only you can access with that link, and it'll unlock like a hidden page on the Sneakers app and you can buy a sneaker. And this came out with Eric Costin sharing a link on his IG stories to the SB4 drop that I talked about. And this was notable because Discord monitors and places like that did not know that this was happening. They did not see that there was a shock drop happening until they saw that link. And so Sneakers app made a big deal of it, that this is a thing, a feature, it's going to be rolling out, and people were all happy. Oh, this is awesome, this is great. And really, it's not that much different than if the monitor actually did detect it, because all it takes is someone who sees it, someone who's following Eric Costin or whoever the next collaborator is that posts it, if it's a Corteiz or whoever, they're just going to post it in the Discord, and that Discord is going to blast it out and at everyone. And then sooner or later, Soul Links and others will add it out. And if you have notifications on for any of these services, if you're, there's lots of people I know that have notifications on for Soul Links. And if you see that, and if you're available at that moment, you'll still be able to cop. And so this is still made for those of us who are terminally online. If you are like a dentist or someone, and you're like operating on teeth for an hour, you're not going to hit it. You got the mask on and everything. It's like same if you worked construction or whatever. But if you're at a desk job, if you're like me, work from home, you get that notification, you can cop instantly. And you can cop if there's a lot of stock, and that's what these SB4s had. They had a lot of stock. But what if like Crenshaw Skate Club has another Dunk SB and they do this and there's 2,000 pairs? It's still going to be the Discord kids with the notifications on. Those are the people who are still going to cop. So it's a cool feature and all, and it'll still mean some, fans who see that link early will still be able to get it before the hordes come in, but the hordes will still cop regardless. Next up, Complex is posting AI sneaker slop, and my disclaimer is that I'm not reigniting my feud with Complex or anything. I'm just talking about how I had called this a few years ago on an episode about how the AI generated content is eventually coming, and it's finally here. I'm just surprised it really took this long. And they had a picture of the Pope dunking and Mount Rushmore of sneakers, and people were debating the sneakers in there, but like others are pointing out there's issues with the image that you created. Technical issues like the Jordan 1 was like a mid, or like, why are you creating AI slop? Why are you boiling the ocean for nonsense content? Why couldn't you pay an artist to do this image? And those are all fine arguments. Like, I agree you should pay an artist. I personally think a 5-minute Photoshop is way funnier than any AI generated content that I've seen, but that's just me. But the majority of people don't really care. They were just debating the facts on the Mount Rushmore. And if people don't really mind, and all it takes is someone with, no skills to just write the right prompt and AI does the rest, that era is here. That's all I was trying to say. And you can either keep engaging with it, you can let them know you don't like it, or you could be like me and just not create it and just do something different. And that's what I choose to do. I choose to make 5-minute Photoshop memes or create my own covers for the podcast episodes, but that's just me. And then also, speaking of Complex, they posted an interview that they had with Joe Freshgoods, and this was from the editor-in-chief, Aria Hughes, and it was a really good interview. She might not be a fan of me if you've listened to previous episodes, but the interview was good. She asked a lot of questions that I think I would have asked if I were to do a part 2 with Joe. So it was really long, it was really thorough. He's really thoughtful in his answers. So I encourage people to find it and to search it out and listen to it. And I'm sure Complex must have listened to the episode I did with Joe, just because some of the topics that were covered in this interview were directly from my interview with Joe, like the signing of his contract with Adidas at a hotel lobby without a lawyer present. So, you're welcome. I created content that you were able to use in your interview. But also, Joe was directly asked about Saucony and J-Tips, and I don't know if the host is trying to be messy and create an issue or create like a social clip by asking. But Joe didn't really fall for the bait, but he did like kind of state his ground that I am an originator, that I kind of created a formula that others are now following. And I get it. There's no point of starting a war or beef with J-Tips. He's probably cool with J-Tips. But if you are an originator, it's all right to, flex that muscle and say you are. And one of the formulas that he talked about was how he tapped into sneaker Twitter too. And that came from when Arya asked him directly, you still have this relationship with sneaker Twitter? And she does like this gulp and eye roll as if she had like this Vietnam flashback of dealing with all the little people on sneaker Twitter and the crazy shit they say over there. This is also most likely a reference to me, like who else has ever mentioned her by name on sneaker Twitter? And Joe's answer was, very kind and very thoughtful. He said he was paying attention to people who were making noise and who had a voice. And his answer is, quote, Twitter sneaker culture is very important because if I'm a brand paying attention, then I'm pretty sure others are as well, end quote. And that was a huge compliment. That was a huge compliment to me from Joe. And he could have been talking about a lot of other people too, because, he seeded a lot of people on sneaker Twitter as he was talking about. Like that was his formula of tapping into people who had original voices. So I took it as a huge compliment and I really appreciated it and laughed at the contrast of, hey, why do you deal with these gulp sneaker Twitter people over there? Those people with their little podcasts. And Joe was basically saying, yeah, they're actually really worth paying attention to. So thank you, Joe. Thank you for the indirect reference. I will accept it. I will say thank you. I don't speak for sneaker Twitter or anyone else. I'm not the sneaker Twitter mayor or anything. I can only talk for myself, so thank you. Finally, the big story in sneakers was Dick's Sporting Goods acquiring Foot Locker for $2.3 billion. At one point, Foot Locker was worth over $4 billion. So since then, it's lost like half of its value. But this acquisition for Dick's Sporting Goods allows them to go international. Dick's is like a US only based store, whereas Foot Locker has locations all around the world. And honestly, if you are trying to expand internationally and do all the paperwork to be in that country, to be registered in each of these countries, it is a shit ton of work. It is a long process. And Foot Locker did that a long time ago. So if Dick's Sporting Goods wanted to do this themselves, it would take them a long time to do it. But if you just buy a weak competitor who has already done the work, it would be a much faster way to do it. And when they're doing that, they're going to be on the same plane as JD Sports because JD Sports is international and JD Sports has moved in a lot into US. So it sets them up for, a big competition between two big companies of Dick's Sporting Goods and Foot Locker and whatever they call it, if they merge it or they keep it separate. So in their announcement of the deal, it basically says they can reach a different type of customer. They sell gear and stuff. They can sell now to the mall customers instead of the big store that Dick's Sporting Goods have across the US. But it also allows them to have a better relationship with Nike. In Lois Zucchini, friend of the show, Lois Zucchini, in her Snobette newsletter, she said that Foot Locker has 60% of their orders that they have are from Nike, whereas at Dick's, it's probably in the 30s, I think. And this allows them to, a big company has a tighter relationship with Nike. And if Nike gets back on a regular footing, on a more solid ground as the market leader, then that would set them up. And Wall Street hasn't been really too keen on the purchase. They're basically saying hey, if you are buying a company that's been going down, that's lost half its valuation, then that's going to sink your ship. Why are you buying it? It's most likely not really a well-run company. And even if it is a well-run company, it seems like that customer has been just going away. So it's not a market worth investing into, that mall customer. So if that's Wall Street's position, I kind of agree with them. But the very first thing that Dick's said in their statement to shareholders was about going global. And so that shows what they really wanted to do. They wanted to take the fight to JD Sports. They wanted to go global. They wanted to, go out of the bounds of the two C's that hold them in America. So that leads to the last point that I saw in like their announcement about buying this, where it said it allows them to, quote, unlock operational efficiencies that create shareholder value, end quote. And whenever you see words like operational efficiencies and cost synergies, that means layoffs, pure and simple. There are going to be layoffs. They're not going to say it at the day of the acquisition. It's just too early to say that, but they've said it by saying operational efficiencies. When they're using that word, they're telling Wall Street, we're going to make this efficient. Don't worry about it. I know you guys are probably nervous about us, buying this company that's, lost half its value, but we're going to like right the ship, and we're basically going to get rid of the people who are not operationally efficient. Because in mergers and acquisitions, the one who is the acquirer is the victor. This has been true throughout history. In feudal times, when there were like fighting kings and warlords, you as the victor take over. You evaluate the crops, the castles, the armies, the generals. I'll take the castle, but the armies and generals, I gotta like vet them a little bit. And you get rid of the ones that you don't want. And even this, in history, in feudal times, when a conqueror would take over a land, they would often do it brutally and just like kill everyone. And sometimes this backfired on them because they could not kill everyone and the people hated them. And there were others that did it more politically. They would pay off certain key people. They would retain certain people, get them to switch over onto your side. Hey, you are a good soldier for that army. You are now a good soldier for my army. And that's what operational efficiencies means. That's what they're going to do. They're going to look through the people here and look who's actually good, who will follow their corporate culture, because their culture is the winning corporate culture and the Foot Locker one is the losing corporate culture. And they will decide who stays and who goes. Because all of a sudden there's going to be like duplicate positions. Say there's like two people who are head of like hype sneakers, like a very niche role, let's say. Are you keeping your guy, or are you keeping the guy at the company that couldn't make it and had to be bailed out? So in the US, you're probably keeping your guy. But because Dick's has not had operations across the world, you might keep the French version of that. So I would expect a lot of layoffs at Foot Lockers. I would expect a lot of stores that are like right across from each other, the Foot Locker version being closed and merged over to the Dick's one. They're going to remove all these duplicate positions. They're going to unlock operational efficiencies, as they said. And when there's like a change like this, you can start adding new things that you've always wanted to do before. Say people were working from home part-time. Previously, you asked them to come in once or twice a week. Now you can just say you all have to come in. You guys are the losers at Foot Locker. If there's an executive at Foot Locker who works from home, now you got to come into the office. How are we going to evaluate you at home? As an aside, when I see tech people, if I see an executive talking shit about working from home, that is bad for the company, that is bad for the employee, it's usually outright bullshit. There's no actual data on it. People are actually much happier working from home. But the managers, the bean counters, the evaluator of people, they want it easier for them. They want it more convenient from them. Or they want to justify the real estate costs of the office at the lease that they've paid for. So when I see executives talking shit about working from home, they're usually doing it for their own benefit, for their company reasons, and not for the actual benefit of people. They're usually either very rich or they're single. And if you are single, by all means, don't work from home. This advice is not for you. But if you are older in life and you have like young kids and a family and you work from home and your job can be done from home, working from home is great. But back to Dick's Sporting Goods and Foot Locker. The other thing that they're going to be evaluating when they're looking for operational efficiencies, it's like instead of retaining this person at this position, an executive are out loud saying, why can't an AI do this job? If you are a copywriter of like Foot Locker press releases or Foot Locker product listings, some Dick's Sporting Goods executive is going to be asking, why can't an AI do this work? And that's what operational efficiencies mean. It means looking for duplicate positions, looking for people whose job can be replaced with AI. And that's what the conquering warlords are just going to do. Dick's Sporting Goods are evaluating the Foot Locker landscape that they just conquered. They're evaluating the crops and the peasants. They're evaluating the armies and the generals and the castles. This castle we don't need. We already got a castle across the street. So that's what I mean. Big changes are coming, and we've seen this analysis from the Wall Street side, and I don't think we've seen it from the sneaker industry side. A lot of them may have relationships with people at Foot Locker, so they're not at the liberty to talk about this kind of stuff. But that's not me. I'm not part of any marketing plan, so I can talk about this kind of stuff. And I'm just taking it from the position of what I would think if I was an executive at Dick's Sporting Goods, what I would think if I was an employee or an executive at Foot Locker. If I was at Foot Locker, I'd be a little worried. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully it's not as bad as I'm thinking it could be. Hopefully people are able to land on their feet. If they are let go, hopefully they're given generous severances and all that. So that's the show, a hodgepodge of segments and thoughts I've had over the last month and a half or so. Thank you for listening. Next time I'll be doing questions. So if you have any questions you want me to answer on the show, I will be doing that next episode. You can email me at sockjig@gmail.com or message me on Instagram or Twitter. But in the meantime, I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening for the show. Go spend some time with your friends and family. Go take those photos. Have some fun. And as always, go fuck yourself.